My name is Albert Park. I'm the director of the HKUST Institute for Emerging Market Studies and a faculty in the Department of Economics and the Social Science Division at HKUST. The thought leadership brief that we wrote addresses the question of how minimum wage policies have been influencing the labor market and inequality in emerging market countries. This is a policy tool that's becoming very popular in most of the emerging markets, all of the emerging markets in fact. We focus on the BRICS countries because up to now there's been relatively little evidence on what's been happening, and we're trying to paint a complete picture of what we know about this issue. Well, I think one thing that we found that's really important and differentiates kind of the effect of minimum wages in emerging markets and in more developed countries is that compliance issues, compliance with the regulations is a huge issue in most emerging market countries, especially in countries that have large informal sectors. It's often very hard for governments to make sure that employers are actually following the minimum wage guidelines. And if only some employers are following the guidelines while others are not, it can create a very uneven playing field, which drives workers from the regulated sectors to the unregulated sectors, even if those are not the most productive parts of the economy. So I think one thing we find is that emerging market governments really need to put a lot of emphasis on compliance and really think hard about realistic assumptions about how compliance will work will influence how the policies affect the real economy. Well, I think some governments are worried about enforcing the regulations too strictly because they're worried that some of the firms, if they have to enforce the regulations, will find it too costly and they'll go out of business, and this will somehow hurt the economy and the overall employment situation. And indeed, where minimum wage regulations are strictly enforced, we often find some negative employment effects for people at the low end of the wage distribution. But on the other hand, the whole goal of the law is to make sure that there's kind of a minimum level of compensation and protections that are provided to all workers in the economy. And so they have to remember that's really what the policy focus is. And so if you're going to have the regulation, you certainly need to enforce it strictly. Otherwise, it becomes actually very unfair if some employers have to follow the regulations, others don't, which also leads to a lot of different types of inefficiencies in the economy.